Welcome everyone. This is the Protect Street Vendors podcast. Today we also have a new and very special guest. These are friends of mine, and I know a lot of folks always ask, "Do we help vendors with permits?" And obviously, these men have been helping vendors with permits, and we've actually been able to give some carts to street vendor victims in the past. So I want to introduce right here. We have Richard and Matt Geller. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll start off with Richard. Richard, well, first and foremost, what is Revolution Carts?
Revolution Carts, it's a passion company for us. So I have a full-time job. I'm a head engineer for a company that manufactures food trucks, and we've been advocating for food truck laws, and we found ourselves, that by advocating for food trucks, we were hurting some of the sidewalk vendors. So
Mm.
we decided back in 2015 to start advocating for them and start pushing the health department. We started with LA County uh, to give them a path to legitimize their business. So
Nice.
that's how Revolution Carts was born.
I
Well,
see
it
that.
was also born out of the frustration where we kept saying, can you help the builders come up with something that's affordable
Mm.
by maybe, overlooking sink size and, all these different things. We were asking for variances really. And we got a lot of yeahs. And finally in 2019, Richard and I were just like, forget it. Let's just build our own.
Wow.
And it's easy to say that when you have a 23-year veteran of food cart and food truck engineering, right? Like
Yeah.
I wouldn't have been able to just be like hanging out with another dude.
And this is the first legal tamale cart in LA County. Is
Legal
that correct?
pre-packaged carts. So like you
Okay.
see other carts where they're grilling or whatever that are
Yeah.
legal, but they're $45,000.
Wow.
And this is the first one that doesn't need water because everything's pre-packaged. Pre-packaged before this was only like ice cream trucks, like had
Right.
pre-packaged ice cream.
Right.
And we pushed and forced and kicked and screamed for them to allow this, which was allowed in the code, but no one had ever done it.
Wow. Okay. And tell me a little bit about yourself. Well, Matt, where did you grow up, and what is? You could tell me a little bit about your background and who you are.
Yeah, sure. I grew up in LA. I grew up in Venice in the 80s, which was a fun and wild time. And I got into the street vending uh, industry because one of my buddies had a food truck and he got shut down by the health department and he had no idea if he was ever going to get it open. And I ran restaurants for years. I think I ate from my first food truck when I was 5 years old at T-Ball at Penmar Park. So I had really I love the industry. I love the culture, and I saw it really starting to burgeon. So I wanted to help my friend, and I just gotten out of law school. I went to UCLA like when I was 30,
Okay.
and we sued 13 cities, changed laws in 30 cities to help mobile vendors. And I think the
Wow.
big thing that we saw was like just getting the powers that be to even recognize that their laws were either unconstitutional, or with the health department, we were just trying to get them to actually follow the law as written. They had
Right.
just kind of come up with policies. So, my heart and passion in this really comes from seeing people succeed and having their own business. And Revolution Carts just came about because we had done a really good job with the food trucks,
Yeah.
but we felt like a lot of people were just left out in the cold.
That's great. Amazing. And Richard, where did you grow up?
So I was born in Mexico. I came to the United States when I was 9. I grew up in South Central Watts.
Okay.
Um, moved out to Compton. So finished middle school in Compton and then came back to Watts for the last 4 years of high school. Um, I started working for a company called Engineering Sales and Services.
Okay.
That's where I started engineering and landed a job with a cater truck where I'm a head engineer now for 23 years. I started designing SWAT trucks and bomb squad trucks. But I had some background going through school. I used to run the BMT program for Burger King, where I used to train kids, how to work on with food.
Mm-hmm.
Bought a restaurant back in maybe '04,
Okay.
and so I have some experience of getting permits for restaurants, and then with the food trucks actually running and helping people get their permits for their food trucks. Met Matt back in 2008,
10? No, 2010.
2010.
13 years ago.
Yeah, and we started advocating back then. We kind of helped change the national fire protection laws to be more friendly with food trucks, and not only food trucks but even setting up events on the street, any type of mobile food facility. Um, we got invited in 2014 to do
Texas.
the Texas TFER, where we went out to Texas. We trained the different counties how to inspect trucks safely
Oh wow.
and kind of give them pointers on
So
what
you're both very well rounded when it comes to the retail food code and just basically the laws surrounding mobile food vending and food trucks. One story that has stayed with me, Matt, um, if I don't recall, I think it was another state that there was a time where they wanted to pass certain laws where food trucks were not going to be able to cook inside. They wanted to also sell prepackaged items from a food truck. How hard has it been for those obstacles? Because I sometimes when I talk to you guys, I feel like everything that we're going through right now with street vendors, both of you have already gone through that with food trucks. How was that to be able to jump over those hurdles?
I mean, the hurt like so, and it depends on where you are. Riverside and San Bernardino County were the last two counties to allow cookaboard on trucks,
Okay.
and we made that change in 2014. And that was like, hey, let's have more food trucks in this county, and it was a cooperative, right? Like
Okay.
I felt like you too, right? We felt like they reached out to us.
Yep.
But then you have Chicago, right, where I was at this hearing, and we were trying to get cookaboard, and they're like, we're going to give you cookaboard, but we're gonna block you 300 feet from any restaurant. It's
Mm.
like a give and take thing, and
Right.
not essentially like, wow, you got cookaboard, but now you can't vend from. I mean, I don't know if you've been to Chicago, but there's like restaurants everywhere.
Right.
It opened up like like
And 300 feet is pretty far. I think it's like
yeah, it's huge,
not
man.
it's not
Like
it's a football field.
there's a restaurant
Yeah.
every 300 feet.
Right.
Like there's like 6 places you could vend. So at every pass, we would run into, especially in other states, these things were like, oh, we want to help vendors, like, but we got to protect restaurants. And so Richard and I saw that. We would joke about this in Texas, where they would say, well, we believe we've got to protect restaurants. I said, well, listen, I'm from California.
What is your rebuttal to that? What is both your rebuttals to when they say food trucks or street vendors affect restaurants? What is your rebuttal to that?
I have two rebuttals.
Yeah.
And the original rebuttal I had when I first started the SoCal Mobile Food Vendors Association was, no, they're different customers. But the reality is, yeah, man, sometimes restaurants go out of business because of food trucks. And it's typically because the food offering at that restaurant isn't great. I've
Right.
seen restaurants go out of business, food trucks be there, and then the restaurant get replaced with a restaurant that kicks ass, and then the food trucks get driven away.
Mm.
So when I have that conversation, when I had it in Texas, I said, listen, in California, we believe in the free market.
Mhm.
We don't block food trucks on the street like they do in Texas, all over Texas. The capitalist people that call us socialists in California have some of the most restrictive laws where food trucks can park in the nation.
Wow.
Now they have much easier build regulations, but like private property, if you're in Houston, you're in Dallas, you're in Austin, they want them on private property. They don't allow them on the streets.
Mm.
So I have this continuing discussion about the free market. Like if you believe in the free market, it's not sometimes, it's not sorta.
Now we nitpick.
Like and it does. I mean, restaurant owners have yelled at me and said, but I've also seen food trucks get absolutely wiped out by a really strong restaurant scene,
Right.
and they go to a different place.
What is your rebuttal to that?
Yeah, it's always about a preference. I think like if you're an actual worker, let's say downtown LA, people that work at the hotels and the restaurants and stuff out like that, they go out to a food truck and eat because it's affordable there, and they don't have the time to be able to go out to a restaurant and sit down and wait for an hour to get fed. So sometimes it's about price and quality. I mean, we saw it in Wilshire where some food trucks came out. They're actually the people that used to work at those restaurants that got laid off back in 07, 08.
Mm-hmm.
They started their own food trucks, and yeah, they took some of the business off the restaurants, but that's because they had better food at better prices.
Yeah,
So
and
it's
the restaurants that replaced the restaurants that went out of business, like the Counter Burger came in.
Yeah.
I mean, just kicked everybody. All the food trucks are like, oh man, we're getting killed over here because the restaurants that went out of business were replaced by great
Right.
restaurants.
Right. And
And you know what? The
Yeah.
one thing I want to say is like sometimes those trucks they actually come back and take over those restaurants.
Yeah,
I mean, we've seen some huge people that have started with illegal, sidewalk vending to a food truck to a restaurant chain. So
right.
yeah,
Yeah, and then food trucks and street vendors too. They always fill the void for food deserts, right?
yeah.
Where there is no restaurants around, and starting off in Cudahy, just this year alone, the illegal street vendors that were selling there, two of them started their own brick and mortars this year. Very proud of them. Other vendors from El Monte too, Tacos Los Palomos, they started their own restaurant. And so, tell me a little bit about this cart. When was it? When was it built? And tell me a little bit about the design, Richard.
Yeah. So, the initially we wanted to design a cart where you can cook on board,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we were asking for some variances,
We submitted plans.
Wow.
submitted plans. We went through the whole motion, and I mean, they kept telling us, yeah, we're gonna have it approved. We're gonna have it approved, and it just kept getting pushed. Keep in mind that approving a plan usually takes 20 days,
20 business days.
20 business days, and getting the grill card through the finish line was almost already a year and a half, and it was getting anywhere. It was not getting anywhere.
And this is
Um,
the county, right? That you were dealing.
Yeah,
This,
okay.
this is from LA County,
Okay.
and there's a lot of political push back and forth as well. So that was some of the reasons. We had to go back. There was an ordinance that was getting drafted, and we had to fit within the ordinance, and we had to fit within health department requirements. They said they would give us variances, and then they came back to us and say, hey, no variances. You have to meet Calco the way it's written. So, COVID hit us in those days, and street vendors were out there. They were the only people that were really feeding some of the essential workers out there,
Mhm.
and they were dying, man. We got to meet a lot of street vendors, and they became our friends.
Right.
As you've probably seen that yourself, and they were getting sick. Some of them didn't make it. They didn't have health care. They didn't have none of that support. And we were pissed, man. We were really pissed that we came back and said, we got to get something pushed through the line. And I went back in. I told Matt, hey, we got tamales, hot dogs. They're in the code already. Let's focus on this and let's push it through, you know? And we did that, and we still got pushed back.
Oh man, it was crazy. I mean, and like in the last after, and the Richard's always like, hey man, let the process work, let the process work, because I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
kind of crazy. So, after they gave us corrections on this thing after 20 days on the 20th day, right? And okay, fine, we'll do those corrections. But after talking to them for like literally 2 months before we submitted, we told them we're not going to have a refrigerator on it and we're not going to have a sink on it because we're going to do the prepackaged.
Yeah.
And they came back to us and says, "Where's the refrigerator? Where's the sink?" Like what? So we had to go through it again.
We
Well,
lost it, and I
Oh, no. Well, the first we gave them corrections, and then they came back with a whole new set of corrections, and that's when I like emailed Barbara Ferrer. I emailed everybody, and I was like, "I'm going to sue you. Number one, I'm pulling all your records, and I'm going to go scorched earth. And remember what happened last time because I did a similar
Why
thing
do
in
you think they make
2013.
it so hard, not only for this to happen or for street vendors to obtain the permits? Why is it that they give us? Because I've noticed now when I walk through with the vendors at the Department of Public Health, how much of a runaround they give. So why is that? Why do you think that is?
I mean, I have my anything new is scary.
Yeah.
Anything new creates their anything new creates their need to create more policy, change things, re-educate. Like we had this thing out, it was approved for what 4 months, and people were calling the health department like, "Well, we would never approve something like that."
Wow.
I had to call and be like, "Yo," and
They weren't even on the same page.
no, not even on the same page. So any change creates work.
So how many of these have been given out already? Because I know a couple of the vendors that I've helped have gotten free cards, but in total, how many have you guys given out of it?
So
we got about 11 carts out there,
11 cards.
yeah.
completely free.
So tell me
and-
what
but
doors, because I've seen what for example Eduardo and Juan, the vendors that we've helped, what kind of doors open to vendors once they have this, and obviously this comes with all the permits.
I think one of the biggest things is that it attracts a different crowd, right?
Mhm.
I took the cart to the Grove in Beverly Hills, and I just pushed it. I wanted to see people's reaction, and shit, people started coming to me with Prada and with Gucci and with, but what are you selling? You selling ice cream? So I wanted to create when I did the cosmetics on the cart, the aesthetics on the cart, I wanted it to be attractive, so it attracts people, and from all shades of life, right?
Yeah.
And shit, that's one of the things, man. As soon
People
as
cross
people
the
see the
street for
cart, they're, what is that? We taking it to photo shoots at the park. Man, we get crowds coming over to us and saying, "Hey, what are you guys selling?"
Yeah.
And that's one thing. It's just a different way of eating on the street. Number two is once you're permitted, you get invited to do all kind of special events where a food truck is too big. You know, with through BFT, we got contracts with Home Depot that a food truck is just too big and they want to have more grills and more plants outside. So a cart is perfect for that type of environment. Um, if they're doing, you've seen the like city events where they're not allowed to be any grill cooking or anything, any real cooking out there, then the cart is perfect for them. Corporate events where they have 50 people, less than 100, right? Then a cart is perfect. We did ESPN.
And we did
Um,
the ESPN with Beverly, and it was like we heated everything up. Richard made it so it's so well insulated. We pulled the propane tank out for propane safety, so we didn't
Right.
bring it inside. She went up and fed 80 people
Wow.
in an hour, and she made $900.
Wow.
And so I think the big thing from like our perspective as passion project cart guys
Hmm.
is we're not just giving out carts, right? We're giving out the opportunity to be connected with vendors. And I have my tech company that connects is Best Food Trucks, which connects customers and vendors,
Hmm.
through catering or just an office party, whatever. And so once they're permitted, they're on that system, and it's like people can book them. We can send them to the Home Depots. We can send them to this weekend. We start at the Brig in Venice. They're gonna have, El Rey's going to be there. Beverly's going to be there. So we're trying to not just give them an awesome cart to vend from, but then also places to make money.
Opportunities. That's amazing. So together you're Revolution Cards, but you, Matt, have best food trucks in the National Food Trucks Association. Can you explain to me a little bit about that? What that is?
Yeah, sure. So the National Food Truck Association is also a passion project.
Okay.
I started the SoCal Mobile Food Vendors Association in the very beginning to advocate, but then I helped New York get started. I helped Baltimore, Philly, DC. Like I was just flying around the country helping people do what we were doing.
Wow.
And they kept saying, we need a national, we need a national. But I kept saying, you want the attention in your community, right? Like you don't want them calling me, you want them calling you.
Right.
Eventually in 2014, we created a national just as a very loose umbrella. We don't make any money. I don't pay myself. And we get one sponsor, which is AA Cater Truck, to give us enough money to pay for the website.
Nice.
But there we can disseminate like how to advocate for yourself, how to advocate in your community. I'll go over bills. Hell, I helped train lawyers in Arizona when the laws changed there. In this time, I recognized very quickly that food trucks needed help vending. Right, like how do I go to this place? How do I go to that place? So I created a system that they can book into locations, and that's what Best Food Trucks is. And now, Best Food Trucks has online ordering. Best Food Trucks has the ability to connect with to get a cart or a food truck
Yeah.
to cater. So that's all we did.
That's amazing. I remember around 5 years ago, we had a couple friends that wanted to build an app for all street vendors, but we kind of came down to the conclusion that it wasn't the smartest thing to do because you already know how the Department of Public Health works against street vendors that are not permitted. So had we had that app, it was just basically we were going to do their job for them, and they would have targeted vendors. But I think it's amazing that the vendors that you've helped that have the permits, the app comes in handy. I mean,
Yeah.
it's amazing, and also right now in LA County, a lot of people don't know this, right? Obviously, you guys do that. Taco vendors don't have any pathway for permits. And from the last time we spoke, Richard, you are in the works of building a taco cart.
that's right. So I met with some of the vendors that you work with, some of the guys that are selling tacos on the street, and what we're thinking is, they're there because people want them to be there, right?
Right.
And they relate, whether they're from Mexico, from Salvador, Guatemala, and they want to come in and kind of experience their culture and bring their kids to experience their culture, right? So I spoke to them. I kind of took notes of what is it they want to sell, how they're selling, and I designed a new cart based on the new guidelines with Senate Bill 972, that is small enough to be able to sit on the sidewalk and where they're going to be able to do some limited food preparation in there.
Right.
And it opens the doors up to do pupusas, the bacon dogs that we see on the streets, tacos, not to the full like one block type of a setup that will have to be under a community event. But if you put enough cars together, then you could have
Mm.
No,
that
they'll be
type of
perfect. They won't need a community event to set up on the
if
sidewalk.
if there's more than four
Oh,
carts,
there's no
if there's more than four carts, even if there's more than four food trucks, you need to pull the community event permits. It's a new rule that started with with LA County, and it's probably gonna spread all over the place.
Right.
But people
Basically
will
a night market, right?
Yeah.
More than
a night market, and people will be able to get the full taqueria experience,
right.
through that.
And I mean, it's challenging. You know what Richard's trying to do. Understand that most trailers sit in a parking space
Mm-hmm.
and they vend from there, right? And what Richard's, similar to this, where I was like, Richard, we got to get something. He's like, I got to make it perfect. And so, he's the engineer. I
Right.
never argue with him. And on this one, he had to create a trailer that could be pulled because it's going to be big enough where you can't get it into a truck anymore. It
Right.
had to be sturdy enough to be pulled, but light enough to be able to quickly zip it up onto the sidewalk, right?
Right.
So like that's an engineering feat. Everything in this space, Richard's kind of this and the new cart. He's creating a new type of cart, right? It's a trailer that's also a sidewalk cart, 3.5 feet wide, 8 feet long, but with everything you need to run a full taco business.
Wow.
And that's tough. But I'll say, and Richard, you tell me if you're getting different vibes, but I feel like because we did this one right, and this was Richard's strategy from the get-go,
Yeah.
because we did this one right, they're actually being pretty helpful
Okay.
getting this taco cart out. We've submitted to LA County, we're waiting, and we've submitted to Long Beach County. But unlike before, like Alina's calling you, like, hey, what about this? And what? Hey, where before it was like silence for 20 days, and we're hoping that they don't come back with something that
Right.
destroys it.
Yeah, I think the definitely the culture at the health departments is changing. The initial thought from them, or what I felt, they thought is like these guys are never gonna. They don't want to get a permit. That's one of
Yeah.
the things that we hear, right? Like, oh, these guys don't want to get permitted. They want to just sell cash and get cash, and they don't want to get permitted. And we're proving them wrong, right? By putting all these carts out there and then having people actually calling us and, hey, how can I get a permit? How can I get a permit? So being able to show them with facts, right, and with actual permits, numbers coming up, now they believe in us, right? They're saying, hey, these guys are doing something right,
Right.
and we're getting more support not only from health department but also from some municipalities.
Yeah.
They're coming out to us and
Okay.
saying, hey, we like what you guys are doing. Keep in mind, it's not just a card, man. There's so many moving parts. I think our presentation, it's about 15 pages of different things that come along with just designing a cart, and for the
Mm.
infrastructure of the cart, through propane safety, how and where you're going to clean it, how do you prevent infestations, so many different things that we have learned throughout all this time, and then we're passing it back to street
Nice.
vending and solving that issue.
And sorry to sway a little bit. Who did this design here?
That's Ruben's.
Ruben.
Ruben Ochoa did
Ruben
that.
Ochoa.
Yeah.
Nice. He also did the one that was at the Cheech and Chong.
Yeah.
Was it the Cheech Marine?
Yeah, it's Juan's cart.
Yeah, Juan's
Yeah.
cart. And so he's been doing, how many has he done? He's done this one and
6, I think.
Yeah, nice.
Is he 5 or 6?
And then the one that was at the Cheech, actually had our picture. I was in
Yeah.
it. You were in it. Everyone's in it. I think it's a beautiful cart. And that one, Juan has it,
Yeah.
and he sells at a. And also, that's another thing too. You guys have been able to get contracts with like Home Depot where they're able to legally sell inside,
Yeah,
right?
and we're trying to expand that program. But
Nice.
Juan and Luz have been they've been exceptional, right? And I talk to them personally, but from our understanding, they're able to make 700-800 a day as opposed to 200.
Wow.
And so, and now they got breweries coming to them, and they got special events coming to them. Like people come to them for their
Right.
own thing. And so our idea on this is just, I mean, similar to what Richard said, like the more doors open, the more doors open. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah.
We seen the vendors kind of just be all shy and hiding behind a trunk, and they don't want to see cameras, and they don't to be like a whole business person. Now that taking calls and having employees and helping their family. Like Luz invited her mother to help her out with some of the
Yeah.
caterings, and then now her stepfather is out also helping them, and they're leaving their jobs and jumping into her business now.
Yeah.
And now they're thinking about, hey, we should open a brick and mortar and manufacture tamales, and then be able to send carts out, kind of deploy carts out.
Yeah.
And then when you see them, just now they with a huge vision, right? Before it was just survival mode. You're selling tamales to be able to pay your rent.
That's it.
Now you're selling tamales, and you have this whole change of life approach.
I mean, just from Juan, they wanted to come onto Home Depot and sell tamales for $2. That's what they had been selling them at.
Right.
And we're like, nah,
No.
you sell it for 3. I mean, minimum 3.
We
You have
did.
such quality product. Don't forget about your labor.
Yeah.
So often street vendors forget about the value of their labor
Exactly.
creating it, and that the legality issue diminishes their importance, diminishes their value, and it happens right in front of their face. So we're like, no, you're selling for 3. First day they sold out. Every day they sell
Yeah.
out, right?
Yeah, when people see a vendor, they just think it's right then and there, but they don't know that they had to wake up at 4, 3 in the morning to
I'm
get the
texting with
masa
vendors at
together.
3 in the morning sometimes.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm always up.
But you know, like we did a food cost analysis for Juan. The tamales are to manufacture just the stuff they buy is $1.61. At $2, they're making pennies, man. And it's a whole. They start at 5 o'clock in the evening to start prepping and cooking, and then to be able to go out and sell. So they're working 16 hours a day, and their labor is pretty much free. They're just the only
Yeah.
profit is on the
That's
actual
insane.
tamal. So you know, also as a community, we have to respect the hustle and don't
course.
mind paying that
Yeah.
a little bit extra. It's, you know,
And I will touch on that a little bit. I mean, we think about vendors that don't have permits and like, oh, it's cheaper if they don't have permits. But understand, it might be cheaper for you, but the anxiety and the inability to know if you're going to be able to make money that week, like all of that anxiety that they hold inside, they're paying for that, right?
Right.
So when we can get vendors permitted, and maybe they're charging an extra dollar or 50 cents or whatever it is, understand that the value of that is, it reverberates throughout their life.
Right.
It makes them a better husband and a better father and a better wife and like all these things
Yeah.
because they're not constantly thinking that somebody's going to come by and throw their freaking food
And
away.
thank you guys for that. You know, I personally have seen the lives that have been changed because of the carts, and not just the carts, but just your knowledge. You know, you've helped me a lot too. For example, Juan. Not a lot of people know this story, but Juan was a vendor who was walking down the street in San Pedro, and there was a man that came out. You know, a bigot, basically telling him go back to Mexico. This is not Tijuana. And so we got together. We did a community buyout. Over 1,000 people showed up to this community buyout. This was, I think, last year or a year, maybe 2 years ago. And that's when, you know, Richard came out and Matt, and then they were able to get him a cart, which is a cart that was presented at the Cheech Museum, and it has our picture in it. And now he legally sells at a Home Depot. And now, not only that, his family has been able to get in the family business. They've been able to get a cart too. So definitely life changing. And it's amazing. It's amazing to see that, and I'm excited about the taco cart. It's gonna definitely change the game too. It's really hard out there for the street vendors, but to have people like you guys to be able to come in and spread that knowledge, and you definitely had the background, especially with the food trucks. And recently too, you helped us not only attend the LA County Board of Supervisors meetings, but we were pushing them to change the code the what was it, the
Adopt the
MICO,
Miko, yeah.
the Micro Enterprise Home Kitchen, and right now it seems like it's already gonna happen.
It's in process.
It's in process now, and that we started that push in April. And the Micro Enterprise Home Kitchen is basically where you can have your own home restaurant. You can have that inspected instead of having a commissary or industrial kitchen. It's just I think it'll open a lot of new doors in the future for vendors. But I really want to thank you guys for all the work that you have done. And is there anything that you would like to say? Or
Yeah, I mean, the big thing we want to announce is we got a corporate sponsor, which we can't tell
Yeah.
yet, but we do get to give away carts.
Wow.
So maybe you can put the link in the bio.
Yes.
It's just, you just have to fill out a form. It should take maybe 5 minutes. Tell us about yourself. Tell us about your street vending experience, what you'd be selling from this. And this could have, tamales, breakfast burritos, hot dogs, pupusas, anything you can pre-wrap.
Tacos de canasta too.
The tacos de canasta. We got one of the El Rey in El Monte, right?
El Monte, yeah.
Yeah, he's doing it. So like, I can't tell you how excited we are for that. And just understand, like, the county of LA has been talking about giving away 200 carts, and they've been screwing around for 4 years trying to figure out how to build a cart like this, and
Wow.
they're still screwing around. They have enough money to pay for 200 carts right now, and they're going to wait another 2 years while they figure out how to build a cart, which is crazy.
Wow.
The DEO and so what we're doing is we're trying to find sponsors so we can give away carts, because we know every one of these carts is a pathway, number one, to permit, but just to a career.
So thank you. You're doing more than the DEO. The DEO is the Department of Economic Opportunity that supposedly has been helping vendors, but I haven't seen anything.
I mean, they announced they're going to do one online seminar on how to do something, one a month for 6 months. I'm like, I mean, we're looking at these guys and we're like, why don't you? Because like when we get somebody a cart, we also go get them a health permit, right?
Right.
So Richard has to go. You've come, right? That's time. They put that thing, bro. You know where it is?
Yeah.
They put that in Baldwin Park.
Yeah.
Baldwin Park is on the edge of the county. It's
Hmm.
4 hours for most vendors to get
Yeah.
out there and do that. That's their whole work day. So like we've been asking the county, yo, can you help us with anything? Is there anything you're not going to do the 200 carts? You're going to try to figure out how to build one yourself. You're not going to. They should be sending somebody with those vendors every single time we sell a cart. But instead, we'll do it, and that's volunteer. Like we don't charge for that. That's part
Wow.
of it.
So yeah, we'll definitely put the link in the description where you'll be able to, submit for a free cart. So if you're a street vendor,
English
submit
or
your
Spanish.
story, English or Spanish. There you go.
And
Uh,
also like if you have like a street vendor that you want to support and you want to apply for them, a lot of them they don't know how to work the cell phones and so forth. So
yeah.
go talk to them, make sure there's something they want to do, and help them through the process, and help your people.
Amazing, amazing. Well, I'm honored to have you both here. I think it's amazing work that you've been doing. Looking forward to. Well, one last question. What would you like to see, not just from the county, but what would you like to see in general 5 years from now? Whether you have
I'll
goals
give
or
you.
yeah,
I would like that permits were the norm.
okay,
That once we have this taco permit out and people start to make that transition, I would like to see subsidies to help with that transition.
mm-hmm,
Real subsidies, not like $100, like real
right,
subsidies. The mindset of street vendors needs to change. A street vendor serving their community on a sidewalk at 9 p.m. with a crowd is a service to the community, culturally relevant,
right,
important, and food serves like nothing else. So many of the people working in these communities, they get off at 10 o'clock. Bro, where are they going to go? They get
mhm,
off at 11 o'clock. And these street vendors, they serve those people. They protect those people. And they make a culturally relevant experience that you don't get in the
mhm,
normal day-to-day life in Los Angeles
right.
County. And that's what I want to see.
And then Richard, you're not only keeping the culture alive, but I think with this cart represents our time and our era. And 1,000 years from now, when they look at our era, they're gonna see this. So I appreciate you not only keeping the culture alive, but creating your own. And keeping our modern era alive too. So, any last words would you like to say, Richard?
Yeah, just keep on supporting street vendors. Go out, buy from them, eat from them, enjoy their food, and let's wait to see what happens in the future.
For sure. Thank you all so much. We'll see y'all next time. This is the Protect the Street Vendors podcast. See y'all.